We've used lime growers, try to cut down a lot of nitrogen, use lime growers. And, we used to have dairy manure, and we do buy occasionally some chicken litter now, but we try to be a lower input farming.
Yeah, my name is Jim Bryson, and this is my opinion.
So in this podcast, we're going to central Pennsylvania, south central Pennsylvania, I guess I should say, and one of our reps that works down there is Lowell Grove. He's farming with his son and his grandson, and they don't farm big acreage, but they always got skin in the game. So Lowell, I just want you to kind of introduce yourself, and Wendell and Bryson, and kind of describe exactly where you're at, and then chat a little bit about, how you got going with growers and the guys that you're working with. And then there are many times I'm going to crudely interrupt you and set you off on a different path, but eventually that'll happen. So you just have to roll with the punches.
Okay. Of course, you already said my name. My name's Lowell Grove, and I live in Hanover, Pennsylvania, and down here close to the Mason-Dixon line in Adams County. But anyways, I've been with growers since, 1979, trying to figure out a lot of answers to a lot of problems. 79, 97. Yeah, I get my mix up. But we've used growers. We started out feeding it as minerals for the cows and seen results and thought, well, if these people know this much about livestock, I think they know what they're talking about the soil, and we have done that. We've used lime growers, try to cut down a lot of nitrogen. We use lime growers, and we used to have dairy manure, and we do buy occasionally some chicken litter now, but we try to be a lower input farming. And some days our crops do better when it rains. Some days when we get too much rain, they don't do as good. But all in all, we haven't done real bad on our crops.
So, hey, Lowell, when you were milking cows, how many cows were you milking?
Well, it was as high as 80 already, but when we finally sold them, we were at 50 or 55.
How long did you milk cows?
How long did I milk cows? 38 years at the home place, and a year before that at another place. And then before that, with my dad, since growing up. So,
right.
Up till 14 years ago in November.
Gotcha.
So basically,
talk a little bit about, the type of farming in your area. Is it mostly just row crops and then they're chopping corn for silage, or have you got vegetables? What's the whole scenario there?
Well, mostly it is row crops and hay. As far as the dairymen and silage in my local area here, there isn't getting to be much of that anymore. It's kind of this out, but we don't have, the Amish are moving in and growing produce and things like that, and they're thinking about setting up a produce auction.
I see.
And, things like that, that's basically about the way the farming is in this area.
So the produce auctions, is that the way most of the produce farmers are moving their product, or are they going locally to groceries? How's that work?
Yeah, it seems like there's a fair amount of roadside markets that have been popping up, and then some will send things down towards Baltimore, the north side of Baltimore, but some of them here actually do send back to produce auctions in Lancaster, Leola area, things of that nature. So they seem to, if they get enough production in an area, they'll tend to set one up and do that. And they'll pick that morning, have it at auction within a couple hours, and have it really fresh, and keep the product moving that way.
Yeah, this is Wendell, and Wendell's farming with Lowell, and he does some auctioneering also. Talk a little bit about that, Wendell, and what you do and how that works for you.
Right. Yeah, I do a weekly livestock auction Monday evening, and close to Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. Would just be a typical run of baby calves, feeder cattle, fat cattle, and then also farm farm-related auctions, estate auctions. Had the privilege of selling a 104-acre farm here in our local area at the end of March. And so it's mostly related to agriculture. Yeah, so it's mostly related somewhat to agriculture, some estates. But yeah, it's interesting to stay connected.
You got a lot of guys listening out there. What about equipment? You do any of that?
Yeah, we do. And it's mainly some consignment style auctions, but mostly farmer liquidations. So it's if somebody's retiring or there's been a major change in a family. But yeah, seems like this year the higher horsepower tractors and combines are significantly cheaper. The more broad range appeal equipment that appeals to hobby farmers and yeah, that's still selling very well. Construction equipment selling good. So yeah, the commodity prices have obviously affected combines and higher horsepower tractors. So
Yeah, no, that definitely, that's everywhere, man. No
Right.
doubt about it. So, Lowell, I want you to talk a little bit about your clientele, guys that you're working with on the growers side, and talk a little bit about how they use growers, and then the calcium situation, how you approach it and how your customers approach it.
Do I use growers, or how do I get people to use growers, or what's your question?
Just talk about how you use growers on corn, and then what do you do with the liming situation? How do you get a guy to start with lime, and how much does he use?
Oh, I don't know. I throw a pebble in the water sometimes and watch ripples go out. But to get them started using lime, and we got a lot of competition in this area that says, we can't use the lime we used around here and all that. But using a lime has cut back some of what it is. I used to spread a whole lot more lime for people than what I do. But to get them to use it, it just sometimes takes time, and I tell them to put in test plots and stuff like that. I've used it. I've spread quite a few tons per acre of the toxic lime that people say is toxic, and yet my crops still grow. So, and people come around condemn me and say you got to use high mag lime and stuff like that. Well, go ahead. So, then how I get new customers, I don't know. As far as I do corn, I 4 or 5 gallon the acre with the seed, and I use non-GMO untreated seed. And you want your soil to warm up a little bit for that. And we use 4 or 5 gallon in the row, and then fuller feed some. And I've been fuller feeding with B-grade urea with growers also. And just how much to find out. Really recommend, I don't know yet. One year I thought I put too much on too late, but we're looking maybe this year, maybe putting 10 pound on corns.
Yeah, you're using that urea. That's your nitrogen source. You're not using any other supplemental nitrogen other than the urea.
Yeah. I used to spread some, but then if it didn't rain in this area, then it would
volatilize.
Yeah, it would volatilize. If it rained a day or two after you put it on, then probably got some good out of it. Not. So I'm doing the fuller feed. We do spread a little chicken litter, and basically that's what we're doing.
When you foliar spray the growers with the urea, what size corn do you like to use or to target, basically?
Well, I get up maybe 4 feet tall or something like that. But I did one time put it on right before tassel, and I think I ended up too much load with the urea and the growers and the NA and all that, too much load right before tassel, and I think I actually cut the yield back a little. Hey, we use 2 to 3 gallon of cutting on alfalfa. That's basically how we farm lime.
How are you? How many cuts on alfalfa are you trying to make, Lowell?
We generally get 4. We don't push for 5. I think I grow just as much as the people around here think they grow 5. I think I can grow just as much hay. And even where with all their potash and stuff. They think they grow tall, darker green stalks, and yet ours yields better short. But we try for 4, and then full feed the alfalfa in the fall.
So, hey, what are you guys doing with the hay? Were you guys got some sheep, or you been grazing sheep, or what's that situation? Or you sell all your alfalfa?
We sell it.
Do you?
The first crop goes over to Quarryville, Lancaster County, to an Amishman. We wet bale it, and he wraps it over there.
I gotcha.
And after that, we just might have drive-through hay service here.
Yeah, we
I
have a fair
understand.
amount of standard bred and thoroughbred horses, breeding farms in the area, plus pleasure
gotcha.
horses. There's a very strong demand for quality alfalfa. This past year, there was pretty much a shortage of it. It was almost a name your price situation with if the hay was
Really?
made correctly. So
Well, you got horse guys feeding alfalfa, really?
correct, especially the breeding farms, the standard breds and the thoroughbreds, the ones that are either working those horses hard performing or else, but primarily the breeding farms, the ones that are raising foals and breeding the horses. And we have a lot of the standard breds right around us, and then some thoroughbreds. So, and they feed primarily a strong alfalfa mix.
I see. So these horses that are in your area, Wendell, I mean, are these being raced all over the place, or are there specific, individuals that are targeting your area because they got the farms there?
Yeah, Pennsylvania has been really attractive to the horse business. They offer a kind of a kickback from the casinos.
Really?
So we've got a lot of horses in the area. Some of them may even have a farm in Jersey, but they've bought a farm in Pennsylvania to have their primary. Most of their horses here a certain number of days to qualify for some of those things. So that part, it's been a positive for the hay business. And
Is it expanding? Is it expanding? You feel? I mean, are there more horses being raised, or is it pretty status quo at this point?
It's kind of a high stakes game. If you're in it, they've been holding their own or expanding some, but it would be tough for somebody to get in and build a reputation. And you've seen states like New Jersey have backed down substantially and focused on other states like Pennsylvania and Kentucky on that.
Sure.
But yeah, it would be the thoroughbreds, obviously your Kentucky Derby style horses. There would be some of those, but then the other ones that pull the sulky cart, the standard breds. A lot of them are raised here in the area, and some get shipped to other places for training and shipped even out of the area, depending where there's training facilities.
Now, are these all dry hay people, or are any of them feeding wet hay to these horses?
Pretty much dry hay for horses. There's a few people that'll feed wet hay, but if there's any mistakes made in making that way, it can be lethal to horses in wet hay. Yeah, so they're usually pretty careful about that. I've only ever heard of a couple horse farms doing it. So typically all dry hay, and they have pretty strong expectations of quality.
Sure, I could believe that. So, hey, Lowell, talk a little bit about the area you service. You get down into Virginia, and you're working with Paul Daughter there in Maryland. Kind of review, where you're getting around to.
Well, Harrisonburg, Virginia, Stanton, Virginia, like you say, with Paul Daughter, and then out through towards western Pennsylvania. We get all kinds of people in every area where we're at. We out in as far as Indiana County Indiana County East, Somerset County. We work with Amish people. We work with others. We work with people that don't like us. We go with other people too, So we just kind of work around and work however we can. And this year, picked up a new customer for this year by just throwing a stone in the pebble. He picked up his seed corn here. So I give him information about growers. And after a while, he comes back, he says, I want some of this. He says, sounds like this is the real fertilizer. So anyway,
So talk a little bit about the lime. You yourself have used the paper mill refuge. Is that something that has been successful for you?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you went out here in front of my house, where we built this house, it was 140 ton laying there in a pile. When you come down through there 14 years later with a plow, you still turn up line, but the alfalfa's growing, you know?
Yeah.
So it's,
Very
it
good.
has been, pretty good. Bugs, we don't have a lot. Don't say we eliminated them all. And some weeds, but we find weeds too. Uh, we have our challenges with them too. But
So
seems like
one
some of that
thing,
we have.
one thing, Lowell, what kind of rate are most of your guys using, would you say, on average, as far as tons per acre of the high cal?
They'll put down a couple ton, but like Roger Crumrine over there, he's put down some, and I don't know if he would have 8, 10 ton of lime down the acre.
I
But
see.
after a while, then they start looking at their soil sample and say pH says we don't need any more. But
Right.
we just go on. I would say, an average of a couple ton a year.
I see. Okay, Wendell, I want to talk about this cattle thing a little bit. This is really something guys are expressing a lot of interest in. Not that they're necessarily going to get in the cattle market, but they're quite amazed at what these prices are doing. And guys that we're working with that are in the cattle business, they want to know other areas of the country. And, what Lowell brought up to me that you saw prices you hadn't seen before. Can you expand on that a little bit and what you're seeing with this cattle market?
Yeah, to me it's amazing. You're seeing a lot of people get carcasses heavier than they ever did before because of the cheaper commodity prices, and then the price they're bringing. You see a lot of 15 to 1,800 pound finished cattle, and yeah, this past week at the local sale there that I do, the majority of the cattle were 220 to 235 a pound on the fed cattle, which just at any point in history would have been we would have thought was unheard of. So
what is your, have you, you get around doing these auctions. Are you interacting with guys that have these calf barns where they're bringing those calves in, and getting them up to a certain weight? You have any experience with that or talk to any of those guys?
a little bit. Now there's a lot of these. What the dairy farmers are doing now is breeding their cows to the top half of their herd, the gender selected for heifers, and then the bottom half they'll breed to an Angus bull, and those calves are pretty much bringing the equivalent of $1,200 a head in a given week now, and then they're sending them to a barn till they get to 300-400 pounds, and then shipping them further to a feedlot. To me, it's a lot of investment there for the risk versus reward, but it's on the whole incline of this market. It's been very well for a lot of people.
Yeah.
People have made out well because seems each time they go to sell, they can replace because the market's higher. Whenever the terms, go ahead.
Yeah, whatever, the people we're talking with is the buildup of the herd is really the big discussion now. The Packers are saying they see herd buildup starting right now. And there's a young woman that writes for DTN, and she's been in the cattle business all her life, grew up on a cattle farm. She said, that's not true, man. She said, farmers, they're just not willing to take this kind of risk. And actually, one of our very good producers in Minnesota was talking about a big herd in Colorado. These guys have been in the business forever, and they just liquidated everything. They said it can't get any better than this. Is that kind of what you're seeing when you talk with these guys?
Yeah, it's a really hard decision to take that $2,000 feeder heifer. You can get $2,000 for her now, keep her longer, breed her, have a calf 9 months later, and then you just have a newborn calf on the ground. Really long cycle to think that's going to have a positive outcome. So that I think at some point it's a tough decision for somebody to think, are they going to invest close to $4,000 in a cow to have a calf until it's said and done. So I think as people do attempt to build a herd, some though, you will see this beef thing really stay tight because that pulls more beef out of the supply to do that.
Yeah, this young woman, she just basically said when you have an upcycle, and then, in price, and then the retention starts, that you never really get back to the total number of cows. And she said that just gradually keeps dropping, which drops the herd itself. And they're discussing this new world screwworm that's coming out of Mexico. And Trump just put that 90-day pause on everything coming out of Mexico. And boy, that really, our guys are saying that caught everybody by surprise.
Yeah, and I think that's what created that $10 per hundredweight bounce this past week was basically that.
Yeah. No, he come out Monday morning right out of the chute. He was talking about it Sunday night, and then right out of the chute Monday, he came out with it. So as we're getting to the end here, talk a little bit about the equipment side, and if Bryson wants to jump in and talk about that M he just bought, and tell the guys, how he's visualizing that. I think there'd be some guys interested in that.
Yep. Now I can talk a little bit. As you know, farming some years works out well and other years not so well. So a little bit of diversity can be a positive. So if somebody's looking for a nice 6175R or 6145R, we have a few of those. We get some round balers in our part of the country and send them down south further where there's more beef cattle areas. That tends to work out. It's all about putting the product in front of the right audience.
Yeah, no, that's right.
So, but yeah,
and I think you're dead on these. The row crop with commodities coming down. The big numbered tractors or the high horsepower tractors, they're struggling a little bit. Combine same way. Right. And we're seeing that all around the country. Everybody's trying to look for that next big sale. So that do you feel that you guys are a little more insulated against that than they are, say, like in Iowa or Illinois, as far as that's row crop heaven out there, whereas you guys tend to have a little more vegetable livestock activity there in the East?
Yeah, I feel like there's more diversity, and obviously the livestock farmers have been doing well. Also, in this part of the country, there's a fair amount of people that own a separate business and then maybe farm because they always enjoyed it or grew up farming. And some of those, they have a different opportunity there. They can still purchase equipment and continue to do so, even if the numbers don't necessarily always line up from year to year.
Reflect that, right?
Yeah, but I can step over and have Bryson step in here too.
Well, if Bryson wants to chat a little bit, is he ready? Yeah, if you want to talk a little bit about the M you just bought, let us know.
Yeah, just tell them what you did Saturday.
I dragged my grandpa to another auction to buy another tractor.
And you had one to sell that gave you some revenue to buy the next one?
Yeah.
How'd that work out? Okay.
Yeah, it worked out.
So I understand you're a red man. You like that red paint. Is that the way it is?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's hard to believe. I know your grandpa's all green, so I didn't know if you would go with that red paint or not.
He fell off the train somewhere.
I understand. Good job, young man. That's you've got a revenue stream going. You need to keep that going. That's how business works. So,
yeah, and he has the ability to work on them some in a way that I never did. So it's interesting to watch that learning curve.
Oh yeah, no, that's you give them guidance, and hopefully they accept some of the guidance. But really, when you get that pain in the wallet, that's when you start to learn things. So. So, hey, Lowell, I'll give you the last go-round here, or Wendell, you guys have anything particular you'd like to talk about? You got a lot of guys out here that are, we're in a fairly large network, across the eastern part of the country. So if there's anything you want to talk to guys about or tell them about, this is your opportunity.
I don't know if I have too much more to say. It's farming's good some years it's not. This area, we've had a lot of dry weather, and it has affected, even a lot of people's crops. Mm-hmm. what this year's going to turn out. Well, we'll turn out in October. We'll tell you more in October.
Yeah.
But they say
That's-
La Nina's leaving, so that might mean we might get more moisture here. We were dry here in the spring. We were dry. Our subsoil's dry, but with La Nina pulling out of the area, we might just be. Maybe that'll change things for us. So we'll see.
So, hey, Wendell, the last thing with what you see on the auction blocks and what guys are selling, what guys are buying, where do you think this agricultural thing is at right now? That's a big discussion, within the industry itself. Do you think it's a lot different, or do you think that guys are pulling in their horns, basically?
Yeah, I'd say the ones that are focused on row crops are holding tight. That's what I've seen. Just kind of, and understandably so, waiting to kind of see what the the next move will be. So the ones with diversity, it's different. And in an area like this, I think it's good to be diversified. It's good to market yourself, market your product, and do whatever you can to gain a little edge there. And I understand certain parts of the country where it's all based on the commodity prices. Maybe there's not that opportunity. But
sure.
In some of these areas, I think whether it's hay or whatever, you can market your product and reach somebody that'll appreciate what you do and how you grow a crop, and makes a difference on the marketing end.
Yep. No, I agree with that 100%. Gentlemen, hey, I appreciate it very much. This was we came out of left field here. We were trying to plant corn, and Mother Nature had some other ideas. So I said to Russ, let's give it a whirl. I think these guys can give us something to think about. And we appreciate that young man on there getting started in business. That's what it's all about, man. Let's keep that family thing going. So I appreciate it, guys. You take care.
Yep. Thank you, Jim.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
This podcast has been brought to you by Growers Mineral. Please visit growersmineral.com.